You're listening to The Play Pouch. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you are all fine in this dreary February month. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick. How you doing, pal?
Not bad. It's a dreary month, but at least it's actually quite hot outside for February anyway.
Yeah. So we've got another sort of mixed news roundup for you today. Again, as we said in our previous podcast, it's a bit of a dry period for gaming, but we've got
2 weeks, Pete. 2 weeks to rebirth.
Yeah.
Then I'm gone. Poof.
He's looking forward to it.
Poof. Bye.
Just in case you guys didn't know, I am as well. Let's start off with something. Actually, let's start off with the dreary shit, and then we'll get on to the good news later. So,
Okay.
I've heard on the grapevine that Bandai Namco is dropping 5 titles from its list. Now, these are the guys that own or did own Elden Ring. I assume they no longer own it anymore, and that From Software is the sole owner of that particular franchise now. Don't know. There's some weird shit going on at Bandai Namco. We have no idea what it is. There's clearly some legal issues going on over there. So, 5 titles are being dropped. We don't know where Elden Ring's DLC stands because it's been delayed repeatedly.
Yeah, that was meant to be coming out ages ago.
Yeah, ages ago. But nothing's happened since. But, Elden Ring isn't the perfect sort of Soulsborne type game, but that's just, that's my opinion, and it's another topic entirely.
I like it more than you, Pete. So
Yes, he does. Also, in a sort of a similar vein, the Embracer Group, which owns a whole ton of games companies, right? So we've got Eidos Montreal, and who else?
They bought a whole lot of them off Square Enix. They bought a whole bunch of them off Square Enix, like Crystal Dynamics, who did probably most known for the Tomb Raider remakes, which were pretty good.
Right.
And I can't remember the company who did Deus Ex. I don't think it's the same company, although I could be wrong. But the Deus Ex games, which Mankind Divided was good. I didn't actually play the second one. I heard it was okay, maybe not quite as good as the first. But a series which is quite beloved by a lot of people, and certainly the franchise is certainly ripe for another game. I would have thought.
Yeah, it is definitely, and I was actually looking forward to it. Human Revolution was okay. Was that the sequel?
I've got them mixed up. Yeah, the first one of the new remakes was the good one. I didn't play the second one. I can't remember which. Mankind Divided might have been the second one. So I got mixed up maybe.
It was very sort of Half-Life-y, you know what I mean? It was on a linear path, but I think it definitely deserves a sort of a semi-open or a sort of a wide linear type setup.
Yeah, it wasn't like an open world game, but what it did do is that the missions you went on, it did give you multiple options. Like if you wanted to stealth it, you could stealth it. If you wanted to go in guns blazing, you could do that. If you wanted to be more of a hacker, you could screw around with the turrets and cameras and all those things. So you could kind of screw around with quite a lot. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Same here. But the issue is this Embracer Group have dropped 29 titles. Wow. 29 titles. And Deus Ex is amongst them. Probably the Tomb Raider games look like they're going to suffer. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, what do we think about that? Because there's obviously, again, like with Bandai Namco, there's some shit happening behind the scenes, isn't there?
Well, it's like most things in life, I'm afraid, it's down to money again. It's down to bad leadership by this Embracer Group, who obviously the story is, I believe, and if I'm wrong, tell me, that they made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Now, we won't get into the whole politics and stuff like that, really, but that deal, not surprisingly to me, has fallen through. So now they're kind of like got to cut the losses, and basically it looks like they're getting rid of the majority of their games, and they own Gearbox, I believe, and apparently that's been up for sale. Gearbox, in case people don't know, are the ones who have done the Borderlands games, which were all pretty big hits. So this isn't a crappy company with no viable products or no important IPs. This is Borderlands. The third game might have been maybe not as good as everyone wanted, but it's still a very, it's still got a lot of pull to that. I think everyone would still want the fourth game to come out. So these aren't crappy studios. These are all studios that have still got something to offer, and the consensus is that there's been other CEOs and other games developers from other companies coming out and saying, "Screw you guys! You're making the business worse. You're causing me loads of damage. You're making the games industry worse than it has to be." So they've become public enemy number one, really, to be honest, with what they're doing.
Well, yeah, they've also laid off over 1,000 staff and stuff.
That won't help either. Yeah.
Look, this is the problem when you have big corporations taking on little corporations and trying to govern like a ton of game studios all at the same time. It's inevitable that shit's going to hit the fan, and if the big group is suffering financially like we've seen here with Bandai Namco and the Embracer Group, then everyone else suffers because it trickles down, right? So this is incentive, I think, for games companies to just have sole ownership of their work, like Bluepoint and CD Projekt Red. It just speaks volumes about independence and creativity and the freedom of creativity. So it's a tragedy. It's one big, massive, fat tragedy, and something has to be done.
Nothing really good's going to come of it. I mean, you hope maybe that if the leaders in this Embracer Group, if they are going to cut their losses, then I suppose all you can hope for is that some of these companies who have produced good titles in the past, like Gearbox, like Crystal Dynamics, like the devs of Deus Ex, can be sold on. And you assume that is probably what will happen, that they will be sold on, and whoever does buy them will have a proper use for them and not it be reliant on dodgy deals with Saudi Arabia or like we talked about Skull and Bones, or with any kind of government. Just don't do that shit.
It's blindly accepting money from wherever rather than sort of sitting them down and going, right, how stable are you people? Like what are you likely to anyway?
Due diligence. Due diligence is the word, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to be better at your business. Anyway, so let's move on to this Microsoft statement, which came out a day or so ago. So they're selling off 4 titles, right?
Have they still not? I know people have kind of been guessing, and people kind of got an idea what they think it is, but have they still not actually officially confirmed them?
No, they won't apparently. But apparently it's definitely not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
No, he did actually forget the bloke's name. Yeah, the guy in the interview
Phil something. Yeah.
Phil Spencer. That's right. Yeah. He more or less did go out on a limb and say, yeah, it's not Starfield and it's not. Basically, it's not Bethesda games. Basically.
Yeah. So according to Maximilian Dude, because I was watching his video, so I'm going to probably be echoing some of his opinions. According to him, it's probably going to be Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush, things like that. So it's because Phil Spencer did say that it's stuff that's been on the console for at least a couple of years, well established.
Yeah, and he also confirmed that 2 of them were going to be our favourite genre types, which is live service, because we know how much we all love them. And 2 of them weren't going to be. So what people have done, people have kind of go, okay, so what are the exclusive Microsoft got which are deemed as live service? And I think the 2 that always come up are Sea of Thieves and Grounded, which is the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of game where you play as like small people in a garden and stuff. So, I mean, I haven't played either of them, so I guess it doesn't make a difference to me either way because I'm fortunate enough to own both consoles. So I suppose it doesn't matter, but going back to the whole exclusivity stuff, I still don't really understand it, but I suppose you can say they are older titles. Now, if they started bringing in newer titles, then I guess that's a bigger concern. And as I've heard other people say as well, this sounds and feels a little bit like them testing the waters to see.
Yes, this is what I was going to move on to. Is it something that they're testing? And it does
Feels
feel
like
like
it.
that's the case, yeah. But see, Max made a very good point, which I want to sort of echo, which is basically exclusivity is an old business strategy now, because if you think about it, exclusivity was used to sell consoles, right? Basically, that's what it's for. It's like, if this game is only on a certain console, like Final Fantasy VII, if people love that game, they're going to buy a PS5. But Sony and Microsoft don't make that much money on their consoles, on their hardware, if at all, these days. So it is really about the online ecosystem. This is what they're selling. And if that's the case, then this whole idea of having exclusives is a bit old and not necessarily needed anymore. And I think it's the Sony and Microsoft are struggling to sort of let that go, because they do believe still that it's a guaranteed way of having people on their systems.
He's right. I do see where he's coming from. And I would also bring Nintendo into the mix, because when's the last time? I mean, Nintendo.
Well, they're in their own universe, bruv.
They are, but they don't even. Their games don't even come onto PC. I mean, at least in Microsoft and PlayStation, at least some of their games, not all. Some of their games, do end up as ports of the PC. Nintendo don't even put their stuff in PC. So I guess, as long-time gamers we are, there's always console wars. There's never been any generation of console which has completely had the floor to itself.
Yeah.
So that it is drummed into my head that there's always these wars. We kind of spoke about it a little bit last time. If it wasn't a one-way street, and if Sony were to come out and say, all right, we'll port 4 of ours over, then that's fine. But because Sony are winning, as I said before, they don't have to. So this is my problem with it, is that it's a one-way street. And I don't know what would convince Sony as the winners or as the leaders, at least at the moment, why they would. They don't have to.
No,
I wish they would, for everybody's sake. Yes, it would for consumers around the world. I wish they would, but I don't see why they ever would. And you got to remember, as a cultural thing, because they're a Japanese company, and having honor and that kind of saving face is important. More important maybe than it is to us over here. That kind of stuff is more important. So they will not want to have any perception of being weak or anything like that. They're in a position of power, and they're not gonna drop it.
It's sad that if they do see it as weak, as to sort of share their work, then I think that's pretty sad of them, to be quite honest.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know behind the scenes what their actual relationship is like. Obviously, they're not going to be friends. They're business rivals, but they've both taken. They're both as bad as each other. Really, I really don't feel on either side. They've both taken shots at each other right over the years. They both have. How much of that is just obviously them protecting their brands, and what is their real feelings on each other? I don't know. We don't know if it might not go as far as, because Microsoft is an American company, and obviously Sony is Japanese, and the cultural clashes and all the politics and all the stuff to do with the history and international stuff like that we really probably don't need to get into. That stuff's real though, and it does impact stuff. As a Japanese company, they probably have a pride about them, and they probably enjoy, to a certain degree, kicking the Americans' ass. They probably enjoy it.
Yeah, there's going to be.
These are like I said. Everyone, most educated people know the history of Japan and America, and so would you be that surprised if they got a kick out of beating the Americans?
Well, no. There's obviously some underlying, I can't even think of the right word, but
I know.
You get my point, right?
Yeah, I know, and it shouldn't be that way, but
it is.
But it is, and also you are talking about, these aren't young people. A lot of the presidents in Sony, for example, 60 and stuff like that. So they've been around a long time, and it's hard to say for sure. We are assuming here. Maybe I'm wrong, and there's none of that involved. Maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the issue is that
they're not best mates, though, are they? They're not best mates. They don't really work together. They've never really worked together. They couldn't even agree to do fucking cross-platform stuff, dude.
No.
So I mean, so they have not got a history, particularly of playing well with each other.
No, that's right. Well, getting back on point, Microsoft isn't in as bad as a state as we thought. They're still balls deep on the hardware market.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they sort of stealthily dropped the fact that they're going to be announcing their mid-generation console update this Christmas, which was like a sort of wow, okay.
No, they do normally do this, don't they?
I'm annoyed, but at the same time, I'm not surprised either. Having just secured an Xbox Series X.
I guess in hindsight, maybe the timing wasn't the best.
But it's like they still. What really annoys me is the fact that they still haven't embraced the ultra wide resolution setup. I mean, it's got a great Blu-ray drive, but I can't watch my movies in full screen wide. There's black bars all the way around, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't tweak my monitor settings to sort of show, and it's a brand new monitor. So I'm annoyed about that. And I am kind of annoyed about Microsoft a little bit anyway, but that's for another topic. But do you think it's a good idea for them to be releasing this sort of mid-generation new console?
It depends. It depends what they're going to add. I think we can assume they're going to add a bigger hard drive, which is needed because you've seen the size of games nowadays, Pete.
Yeah.
The 100
gig.
Yeah, it's just not big enough. You can have, like maybe 6 or 7 AAA games, maybe on your drive, and then that's it before you got to start deleting stuff. Or if you've got an external drive, then you have to move stuff across. So it will come with a bigger drive. Will it have more power? I have my doubts about that one.
So they're saying it will. They're saying that it's going to be a big leap.
If they're saying it's going to be a big leap power-wise, then that does piss me off. Yeah.
Well, see, they want to dwarf Sony. They're desperate about, putting Sony's hardware to shame, and they're going all out. There has been this rumor with AMD and their chipsets wanting to get the custom chipsets for their new console. I don't know where they're at with that, but I am annoyed with Microsoft, if I'm going to be quite honest, because they seem to be more focused on hardware rather than optimizing the current system they have, because it's been proven that if you code a game well, then you can have a game running at 2K60 on the Xbox Series X. It's just that people are lazy at coding, or they don't understand, the things that, say, maybe Rockstar understands with their titles. And, that's just the way it is. So
yeah, so I mean, after hearing you say about increasing power, that does. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that, so my live reaction is one as that pisses me off. Because I was expecting, so maybe a sleeker design, because I always like to kind of come out with a little bit of a sleeker design. So it will probably be a little smaller, probably look a bit better, a bigger hard drive, maybe no disk drive. They might not bother.
Probably no disk drive. It's likely, isn't it?
Yeah. So no disk drive. So this will be the first ever. Oh, well, not the first ever, but this will be the digital only version. And
I just don't think that throwing more power, graphical power at a console is.
Do you remember when the PlayStation did the PlayStation Pro? Now that was okay because it was only like 10% more, right? So when it's like 10%, it's like, okay, that's not enough for me to feel not jealous. That's not the right word. That's not enough for me to go out and buy a new one. Not for 10%. Yeah. But if they turn around and release an Xbox X at the end of the year and it's 50% more powerful, then that's the kind of thing where you're going to go, damn, I really would like that. And it's a bit shitty because I've already given them £500, and that was only a couple of years ago. And now you're bringing this out with 50% more power. And as a gamer who wants all his games at 60 and doesn't get his games at 60, of course I'm going to be attracted to it. And and that doesn't mean I have to buy it. Of course, it's all about discipline and self-control. That's on me. But the fact that they're doing this so soon after and just swapping another 50% on it, knowing that they're probably going to be releasing another console in another 3 years after that, which will be their proper next gen one. It's just like, so now you want 500 quid every 3 years off me. I mean, you could say, well, then Nick, you sell your old Xbox, and I guess that's possible. Yeah, I could sell my Xbox, maybe get 200 for it, perhaps pre-owned, maybe that's what you do. This one comes out at the end of the year, they want 500 for it, and you go, okay, then fine, I'll sell my Xbox, get 200 quid for it probably, and then you spend 300 getting the new one. It's something I would consider if they say 50%. I won't lie, because I like my Xbox because of the controller. I want to play the games I like. Games like will Starfield run at 60 on it? This is just an example. A game that I wished was at 60 and really did affect my enjoyment of that game. Could, with this extra power, would that be an option for me, for example? And then I'd be interested, mate. And I would be. I can't lie. If it's 50% or something of those kind of odds, if it's 10% like they did with the PlayStation Pro, then no, that's not enticing. I ain't going to pay 500 quid for 10%.
Well, they know that. They know that is, like a small.
It's shitty, mate. It's shitty. There's nothing. It is. It is shitty. It's shitty. It's greedy.
I hate it. I hate it, and I'm not going to be forking out any sort of money on something like that. I think that's just it's very shitty.
It is.
Okay, so moving on to some really nice news, actually, and it's something that I've been wanting for a very long time when it comes to games. Now, we're all aware of the artificial reality market and the kind of things that we can do with artificial reality. We can build AI images just using a few lines of words and stuff like that. We can even make movies now with AI. But now Nvidia, they announced at their sort of conference, I think it was a few weeks ago this year, something called Nvidia ACE, which basically is a dynamic AI NPC interaction system. So it basically means that NPCs can talk to other NPCs and have dynamic conversations, which are very realistic, and they're sort of never the same. It means that we ourselves can talk to NPCs physically as in verbally to them, and they can respond dynamically to whatever we say. It's a it's a deep learning system which will, I mean, the video will explain it, but it basically takes your voice, transfers that to text, and then it builds a response and then transfers that text to speech and then spits it out. And this all happens within, a matter of split seconds, basically. So being able to have a full-on conversation with an NPC is something that I've, always dreamed of. And it finally seems to be approaching us. And Nvidia says that certain games developers have already started to embrace it, added it to their sort of pipeline, if you like. And that coupled along with this whole DLSS system where you can pump a 30 frames per second game up to like 100 frames a second just based on AI. What do you make of all of this? Because I love...
So I have watched a little bit of the video regarding the AI. I haven't watched all of it, but I have watched a little bit. I might talk about the frames per second thing first because this is completely new to me.
Yeah.
that would be great. As somebody who I was saying to our mate Alan yesterday that Skull and Bones looks okay, but I'd rather just play Black Flag at 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
So if they could do something like turn like the old Black Flag game to 60 frames per second, mate, I'd be playing that right now. So if it's capable, if that could ever come on the consoles, that would be fantastic to play some of the old games that are still better than a lot of the tripe you get today, like Skull and Bones, which is a poor man's Black Flag, half the game. That I'd just rather play Black Flag. If I could play that on 60 frames per second, and there's other games I can think of as well, that would be great. Whether or not it ever comes to consoles or not, I don't know. It sounds like it's obviously a PC thing. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it is. But for now, I very much expect it to come to the consoles within the next sort of few years.
That would be great, and it's something that if I'm Xbox or well, if I'm any of them, including Nintendo, with all their rich back catalogs of games. I mean, look at Nintendo's back catalog of games. So, I mean, if I'm any of them, I'm all over this because it's like, well, now we can resell our back catalog, and now there's probably more reasons for people maybe to play it now because it's going to run better on their systems.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of money, which is what let's be honest, that's what these companies care about. There's a lot of money to be made on these rich back catalogs. So yeah, that sounds great. If they can translate that to some of the consoles, mate, I'll be all over that. The AI, I'd have to see what the limitations were exactly. Like, for example, let me give you an example here. Let's say it's an RPG, right? And let's say they've got a voice actor. Let's use Laura Bailey because she's one of my favorite female voice actors. She did female shepherd in Mass Effect games, which is great.
Yeah.
So there's only so many lines they can get her to record, right? Yeah, so how would that work under this? Because if she's only recorded, I don't know, X amount of lines, right? How is that? It can't go forever, can it? It's going to repeat.
No, but basically what is going to happen is that they record a set number of words and the AI changes the pitch and the what's the other word? It basically adapts
the tone
everything.
And the pitch.
Basically, to sort of match what they need to say, basically. So they, record a whole bunch of words, and the AI takes over based on a script. So literally, actors would turn up, speak their words, and that's it. That's all they need to do. And the AI would take the rest over.
Well, I have. It reminds me of after Starfield came out and we all had a big laugh. You've seen the video, Pete. We've both seen it, where somebody did a mock-up of Todd Howard saying all these funny stuff about 16 times the load screens and all these funny stuff. Yeah. And to be honest, it sounded exactly like Todd Howard. So I'm assuming we're talking about the same kind of tech here.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of mods out on Nexus for things like Cyberpunk, where you can change the voice of the main protagonist to someone else. Based on AI deep learning, where it's taken voice samples from other things and adapted it.
So if they got Laura Bailey to come in and say, "Okay, Laura, you're going to record, I don't know, thousands, how many lines, right?" And she just says words, right, individual words.
Yeah.
And then the AI would be able to make its own sentences from that using her tones. And if there were words that she hadn't said, right, for whatever, let's say there's a word that she didn't record, would the AI be able to mimic her voice to say that word like they did with Todd Howard?
I'm not sure. Possibly. AI has come a heck of a long way since we last sort of studied it. Certainly since I last studied it, and it can sort of do wondrous magical things now. So it's like, it can, fabricate whole sentences which sound wholly believable.
Well, I'll tell you what, if the AI has come to the point, and I don't know if it has, as you've just said, I don't know, and you know more than me about it, so we'll have to see. But if it gets to the point where it can do pretty damn accurate mimicry of words that the voice actors have not said, then that would be groundbreaking. And especially for games like especially the RPG kind of genres. I mean, we all want more immersion, and of course that immersion would be great. As for the you speaking to them, my initial reaction, it reminds me a little bit of what they did with the Kinect.
Milo.
Yeah, and I know that it's going to be much more advanced, the Kinect, because obviously that was several years ago now, and obviously the technology has gotten better. But it would obviously, a lot would have to be the voice recognition, software.
Well, this is where then their Nvidia ACE system comes into play, because they've obviously been working on it for a while, and they've said that this is a big leap forward, and we want things to progress. They believe that things have been a bit too stagnant and stale for a bit too long, and they want to kind of push this technology forward. I mean, like they brought real-time ray tracing to the commercial market, whereas before it would have cost you something like 60 grand to implement this into sort of like a cinematic, let alone a real-time environment. And the next thing is all of this sort of interaction. And yeah, I mean, it's something that I've always dreamed of, being able to sort of walk up to an NPC and go, "Oh, you're right, mate. Do you have any of this for sale?" And then you'll just be like,
yeah. I mean, I think that would be kind of groundbreaking, especially for, like I say, especially for the kind of RPG genre in particular, where you do try to kind of live vicariously through your created character. So to that immersion, that would give you even more increased immersion. And yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, it sounds amazing, and I trust Nvidia with what they're bringing, because they've always been quite a solid group who they do what they say. So hearing this sort of news is just absolutely amazing to me.
I think it's one of those things, Pete, that I think that we know that eventually they'll get there. It's just like eventually that, I believe, technology is always kind of getting better, and eventually that will be there. I don't know how far away it is. Obviously, with this news, that maybe it's closer than we think it is. Maybe that's true. I don't know. It's something that I think would come in. There's always, the immersion will go up, no matter what. With every generation, it kind of does. Even though we've both agreed that storytelling has not been on the rise to the same level. Do you know what I mean? The games are all getting prettier. The games are all kind of getting bigger, mostly. Are the stories getting better? No, I don't think that we can say that they are. It's probably gone a little bit the other way, because so many of the old RPG, for example. I mean, I'm not saying that you can only get good stories in RPGs, but they kind of go hand in hand, right? When you look at the quality of the RPGs, there hasn't been, Baldur's Gate is kind of the exception to the rule. They seem to have produced that kind of thing, but so many of the other RPG greats, as we once knew, have all kind of fallen on bad times, I suppose, when it comes to their storytelling and their creativity, haven't they?
I think it will sort of come back to that, because the emphasis is on pushing graphics and fidelity and all that kind of stuff, realism. But I think eventually that companies are going to realize, well, having graphics is fine, but we need to go back to having good stories, and it will happen. It's just a question of when, basically.
So this technology is definitely going to come in. I don't know how far away it is. This is news. This is news that maybe it's not as far away as we thought it was going to be. That's how I'm taking
the fact that they've announced it and they had a demo for it means that it's imminent, and it's probably going to be something that's exclusive to, like, Nvidia's 5 series of GPUs.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be a PC thing, I think, long before it drips its way to the consoles. It is going to be a PC thing, probably for a good number of years, I think.
Yeah, just like DLSS is right now, and that's going to trickle down to the consoles. AMD's FSR is already implemented, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think it's good times ahead in terms of graphics for games.
My only thing I'd be a little bit worried about is, let's hope this isn't another like the Kinect, where they kind of jump, they ran before they could walk kind of thing with the Kinect. And maybe it wasn't all their fault. Maybe the hype got too much. You know what I mean? Everybody was like, the hype got too big for the Kinect. Like we all thought it was going to change gaming forever, and obviously it didn't. It couldn't really do everything that the kind of claim said. So I'm hoping this is like not another kind of false dawn, and that this tech is ready to go, and it doesn't kind of do
Well,
a
it
little bit
looks
of.
like it is. It looks
Well, I
like it
hope
is
it
ready
is.
to go,
I hope it
based
is.
on what they showed us. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I trust Nvidia, as I said, and I know that at some point it will be a standard, and I can't wait because I've always wanted to do something like that. I think it's amazing. That's probably going to wrap it up for us, unless there's something else you want to bring up.
No,
Other than this,
I think that's it for now. There
covered
isn't
it
that
all.
much. There is only Rebirth coming out for either one of us this month, so it is going to be a little bit of a slow month. I think we're going to be ready to do a review on a game, Monster Hunter Rise, and its DLC. I think that's going to be coming up soon because we're literally
literally at the end.
literally at the end. There's like one more monster that we haven't fought yet. And technically, we could do a lot more. The grind goes on for a lot longer, but I know that you don't want to do it, and I'm certainly going to. If I do continue, it's going to be at a much slower rate because there's other games coming out for me anyway.
Yeah,
So
I kind of am despising the grind fest in
it,
general
it
at the
is
moment.
it is a lot. It is a lot because it is a lot going to 300, which is like the max level. It's a lot when you consider where
It's
still
stingy.
it's a lot.
It's so stingy. But anyway, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Hope you enjoyed our podcast episode. What are your opinions on the topics that we discussed today? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we didn't say it at the beginning of the podcast, as I should have done, but never mind, I'll say it now. Subscribe, click the notification bell, slap the like button, and tell us how gorgeous and wonderful we are in the comments section below. And until the next episode, we shall see you later.
Take care, guys.
Bye.